You ever been totally convinced that one single change, a new job, a move to a sunny city, getting that perfect car, would be the thing that finally makes you happy? And then you get it, and the feeling just doesn't stick around? Well, today we are going to dive into the powerful cognitive bias that explains exactly why we're so often wrong when we predict our own happiness.
Okay, let's just jump right in with this fascinating and maybe a little nerve-wracking piece of data from a big, long-term study in Germany. This graph shows how people feel about their lives right around the time they get married. You see this huge spike in happiness around the wedding, but then it's followed by a pretty steep drop right back to where they started. So, what on earth is going on here?
Now, when you look at that chart, your first thought might be, well, I guess getting married is just a huge mistake in what psychologists call affective forecasting. That's just a fancy way of saying we're bad at predicting our future feelings. But is that really the whole story? Does the joy of marriage just evaporate, or is something else going on?
To solve this little puzzle, we first got to understand a fundamental shortcut our brain takes anytime we're asked to judge something as huge and complicated as our own happiness.
Think about it. When someone asks you a massive question like, "So, how happy are you with your life as a whole?" Your brain doesn't just launch into some massive multi-year review of everything that's ever happened. No way. It does something much, much faster. It actually substitutes that hard question for an easier one.
A classic study shows this shortcut in action perfectly. Researchers asked college students two really simple questions, but the order they asked them in was absolutely critical. First, they asked, "How many dates did you have last month?" And right after that, they asked, "How happy are you these days?"
And the result was just astonishing. For the students who heard the questions in that order, their answer to the dating question became a massive predictor for how they answered the happiness question. It's like their brains automatically swapped the hard question, "How's my entire life?" for the much easier one they just answered. "Well, how's my dating life going?"
And this just shows how sensitive this little brain trick is. Get this. In another experiment, people who just happened to find a dime on a copy machine right before being asked about their life satisfaction reported being significantly happier with their entire life. That tiny, totally irrelevant little mood boost temporarily became the answer to the huge question, "How is my life going?"
So here's the crucial point. Our judgment about our overall happiness is often just a quick snapshot, and it's based on whatever our attention happens to be focused on in that very moment.
And this brings us right back to that marriage graph. See, the data isn't necessarily showing that the joy of marriage just vanishes. It's showing that for the first year or two, when you ask a newlywed, "How's life?" the very first thing that pops into their head is, "I'm married." But as that novelty fades, it's just not the first thing they think about anymore.
This brings us to the core definition of what Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman calls the focusing illusion. And I want you to really let this sink in. Nothing in life is as important as you think it is when you are thinking about it. It means whatever you focus on just looms large and feels like it defines everything. But the second you stop focusing on it, its perceived importance shrinks like crazy.
We see this illusion playing out everywhere. Take the common belief that people in California must be happier because of the weather. I mean, we think about California, we focus on sunshine and beaches. But the reality, according to the data, there is absolutely zero difference in life satisfaction between students in California and students in the Midwest.
Right. We blow the importance of climate way out of proportion because it's the obvious thing we focus on when we compare the two places. We totally ignored the thousands of other things that actually make up daily life, traffic, work stress, friends. And this illusion applies to some even more profound examples.
The real power of this illusion, though, becomes crystal clear when we apply it not to something like weather, but to truly life-altering circumstances.
So I want you to just take a second and genuinely consider this question. What's your gut reaction? The question itself forces your mind to focus entirely on the disability, right? On the tragedy of the condition. And that focus almost certainly twists your judgment.
Because the reality is, humans have this powerful ability called adaptation. Over time, our attention naturally shifts away from a new situation as it just becomes part of our life. People with paraplegia aren't thinking about their condition every single second of the day. They're working, they're reading, they're laughing at jokes with friends, they're getting mad at the news. Their attention is on the everyday stuff of life.
And this data is just, wow. Look at this difference. When the general public was asked to guess, they believed a paraplegic spends a whopping 68% of their day in a bad mood. That number right there, that is the focusing illusion in its purest form. It's an answer based entirely on the disability, completely ignoring the entire rest of a person's life and our incredible ability to adapt.
But, and this is so important, people who actually know someone with paraplegia, they give a much lower, much more realistic estimate of 41%. And that's because they've seen adaptation firsthand. They've seen that life, it really does go on.
So, why does any of this matter to you? Well, it matters because the focusing illusion systematically causes us to chase the wrong goals. It makes us pursue things that we mistakenly believe will bring us lasting happiness.
And psychologists have a perfect word for this: miswanting. It's all about the bad choices we make because we're so bad at predicting our future feelings. And the focusing illusion? It's one of the main reasons we miswant.
Okay, let's compare two choices. Let's say buying a brand new car versus joining a weekly book club. When you think about that car, you focus on the initial thrill, right? The new car smell, that feeling of driving it off the lot. It's super exciting.
But here's the trap. The focusing illusion makes you massively exaggerate the long-term happiness you're going to get from that car. You're focusing on that initial rush, but you forget that in a few weeks, it's just your car. Your attention will move on. The book club, on the other hand, is an experience that actually requires your attention, week after week. It provides sustained engagement.
So, the really crucial thing to take away from all this is to just be more aware of what you're focusing on when you make a decision about your future. Real, lasting happiness often comes not from those flashy one-time purchases, but from experiences that consistently and positively capture our attention over time.
And that leaves us with one final thought. As you think about what would make you happier right now, a promotion, a vacation, a new phone, is it possible that you're overvaluing it simply because it's the one thing you happen to be focusing on in this very moment?